Hey guys, welcome to our Nxim YouTube chat. We basically just get into some things that we didn't have time for on the podcast this week. So join us. Brittany and I do tend to take these ADD sidebars, as we call it, where we kind of go off on random tangents. So to save you, in case you don't want to watch it, I created a separate video called ADD Sidebar Video 1. You can click here and go watch that if you want to just see us shooting the shit. And if not, then go ahead and just keep watching this video as we dive right in. Oh, Lordy.
All right. Should we actually talk about our podcast?
Yeah, let's do this. I am so excited. So I feel like you know about things like years before me. And then I had to stumble onto them. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And you're like, yeah, okay, that's old news.
Because I'm insane and an insomniac and I stay up until 4 a.m. and I study these things, Jenna. It's not something to be proud of.
No, but it was just funny. So I remember coming to you and I was like, have you watched? Because the Vow had just come out and so let me back up actually. When Leah Remini came out with all the Scientology stuff, I was sucking it in like it was a life force. I just could not get enough. It was mind-boggling. It's crazy how people are getting away with this stuff. Like so I was obsessed, and I'm not like a cult person. We've talked about this. Like cults don't interest me, but it doesn't, I don't know, seem like a stereotypical cult. So that's why I got just so mesmerized by it. And then come Nxim it has the same kind of vibe to me as Scientology. And
Wait, why are you not into cults? Just out of curiosity.
No, I've just never. Okay, so when you see, that meme where you're like, I don't want to be the murderer that people just like scroll on by. I feel like that's how I feel with cults. I'm like, it's just not, I don't know. I'm not interested at all. I don't know why that is. Maybe
we got to unpack this. You have to figure it out.
Yeah, I think what it might be is that before I got into Nxim and we did all this research, I will say I was one of those people that was like, how are these people so stupid? Is really what I think it comes down to, is how are these people just giving up their children, giving in their money, drinking poison and knowing they're going to die? Like, I couldn't wrap my head around it, but I feel like maybe that's changed or could change, because we did a pretty deep dive and seeing what therapists will say and people who specialize in brainwashing and cults and all that, I do think that you don't have control in a sense. Like you kind of get so brainwashed.
Yeah, I have the same feeling towards cults, and I mean, it's even difficult for me to understand faith, like in religion and things like that, because there is no scientific proof. You just have to have faith. And I'm a more science-driven person. And so you would not, I mean, you know me, you would not be able to convince me of anything, because I would debunk it, research it, all of that kind of stuff. That being said, there are wonderful, intelligent, successful people that are very susceptible to this, because it is a scientific thing that it's coercive control, it's brainwashing. But that, I grew up around a certain religion that some people call a cult, and I saw the ins and outs of it. And to me, it was a full cult. And yes, these women were so oppressed, and there was abuse that I saw all of the time. And now when I look back, I'm like, nobody wanted that life, but they were clearly brainwashed into thinking either they didn't know any better, which is what happens a lot of times with these cults, because they immediately make you cut out all of your family and friends, or they find a place out in the woods, which is what Keith Raniere did in the beginning. He would take people out in the woods and stuff like that. So once you don't have the social ties and the family to mirror back and say, like, what are you doing? This is weird. It's easy to get pulled in if you've never had love, if you've never felt that people like Keith are allegedly psychopaths, and they see immediately your weakness and they pull it out of you.
It's just so interesting because, like you said, it is successful people, and it's people that get sucked in because they think they're doing something good. And that's where I start to feel so bad for a lot of these people, is there's no ill will. They're interesting because if you've ever dealt with like self-help stuff, there is some truth to some of that, right? Like there is a thing as limited beliefs, and there are ways to like work through that and make yourself better and open your mind up. And I do believe in that, but I feel like they take that twinge of truth and then it somehow morphs into something sinister and nefarious and not at all what you signed up for.
Yeah, and it's interesting how it always tends to go the same way. It's almost like the textbook to becoming a cult leader, because I've always been interested in cults. I know that I would never really fall for it, but like my family's very interested in them. And my mother-in-law was kind of searching for spirituality during the 70s and got caught up in a bunch of different communes that some people might consider cults, and she was the smartest person I ever knew, and she was so empathetic, and all she wanted to do was make the world better, and she was naive, and that's all it takes. Like brilliant people are naive, you know, like
Yep.
very book smart people sometimes haven't had the life experience to have the common sense to know this person's coming to get me.
And they also do a really good job of dangling the carrot, right? So I don't know if I told you this, but my mother-in-law years ago was actually recruited. Her husband was at the time was recruited by Scientology. Did I tell you about this?
No.
So they dangle the carrot of like, and it's the same with Nxim because they did it with Mark Vicente, which you see in the Vow, where they're like, well, we will help you be successful. We will help you, give you the tools to better your business. And then slowly you're so indoctrinated into helping the cause that your dreams have gone out the window. And
allegedly, that's what Scientology did to John Travolta. They got all of this information on him when he was not famous yet. And then once he became famous, he was stuck, which is similar to Collateral.
Right.
You know, there's always in Scientology, they do auditing, and you give up all of these secrets and you're stuck. I mean, it's, you know, like young girls who send a boy a naked picture and then he holds that over their head. Like that can control a lot of people, especially successful people who that would ruin their reputation, and that's not who they are. And it's heartbreaking that they had to live through, they wanted to better their lives and they just created their own prison for themselves.
Well, it's like you say with the young girls, like Catherine, we saw, or not Catherine, India, we saw in Seduced, when she started talking about having to take pictures of like her private parts.
Yeah.
And all I was thinking at that time was like, oh, I mean, as a rational person who hasn't gone through all that, you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
You nailed it though. She comes from a very famous family, very public. And so who's to say that picture doesn't go circling the freaking internet or something? And that is terrifying. That is terrifying.
Yeah, because you don't think just about yourself. You think, oh my gosh, my family, what will they think of me? What will my friends think of me? And then you just dig your heels in more. And that's how these things tend to work.
Yeah. And the other thing that kind of, I mean, this is such a weird thing to be bothered by, but the thing with Keith Raniere, so we talked about in the podcast, like how he based everything kind of off of a couple of different pillars. One of them was being like an MLM format.
Yeah.
But I want to be very clear that
we'll just say multi-level marketing schemes. Some people might not
so
know.
It's okay. So there's two things, and correct me if I'm misspeaking, but there's a pyramid scheme and then there's multi-level marketing.
Yes.
Pyramid scheme is illegal.
Correct.
You're selling something. What is it? I forget what the tangent, but it's like, I think you're buying something, but you're not actually getting a product. You're not actually getting something. I mean, I don't know.
Right. They make you buy in, like you have to buy a bunch of stuff up front, and there's all of these costs up front, and then you're kind of left with all of this stuff.
Right. And then like there are legitimate multi-level marketing companies out there, and people, listen, I know it leaves a bad taste in people's mouth because some people go nuts and then they wanted to just screw over all their friends to make money. And like, I understand that, but that's business in general. Like,
but there's also some amazing ones. Like my mom was all about Tupperware. She had Tupperware parties. Oh, yeah. I still use some of that Tupperware. It worked. We got something that actually we use.
My mom was a Mary Kay lady. Okay. Like we had the pink bar and everything. Like I get it. Like trust me.
Avon.
Yes. I mean, hello. I love my oils. This is legit. And I just don't want to use that terminology, I guess. I'm just a little bit sensitive to it because stop it. Not all MLMs are a fraud or scheming you or whatever. Like, do your research. But in this case, I would call Nxim more of a pyramid scheme than an MLM but I don't.
Yeah, and that's how they are dealing with it in the courts too. I mean, they're using racketeering, all of the things that they use for the mafia because it's a Ponzi scheme.
Right. It's not.
And even worse, I mean, the things that they did, you know, the branding, which is kind of the thing that everybody talks about because it's just so mind-boggling and insane and heartbreaking. And I actually heard that initially when they were coming up with this idea, because Keith Raniere was not very intelligent and audio recorded a lot of the ideas of how they were going to create this. And he said they wanted to do a tattoo.
Mm-hmm.
So first it was just going to be a tattoo, but they looked up, they're very smart about looking up the laws. And
he was always making it sound like, well, we have to do it this way. And you see it in hindsight and you're like, oh my God, he is like ahead of himself almost because he's trying to make sure he's not doing something that can get him in trouble. It's just,
oh, he's a major con man, anything to continue his con. So he looked it up and it's illegal in New York State to perform a tattoo if you're not licensed. Nothing about a brand though. That's why they decided to do a brand. So the sinister mind he has, and it's just,
well, in that same audio, he's like, we should make them say, yes, brand me or something to the effect where they're asking for it. And I'm like, you son of a bitch.
Oh, it is so upsetting. And again, I think a big reason you have to keep reminding yourself is the collateral and all of that stuff that keeps those women there and keeps them doing those things. And because we see on the docuseries The Vow or Seduced that they didn't want to be doing these things, right. Like once they were in it, although some, it seems like
the people that are dancing outside the windows of the prison, well, I think they are still real excited about it.
Oh yeah, people are still very invested. But like Lauren Salzman, you know, Nancy's daughter, she was accused, and I believe she was convicted. Don't quote me on that. I gotta. She for sure she was charged. Yeah. She kept a sex slave locked in her room from March of 2010 until April of 2012. And she was from Mexico, and she threatened her all the time that she was going to deport her back to Mexico if she didn't finish her work, which was disgusting. Being a sex slave. Yeah. And there was another one of them also, one of the Bronfman. I always forget how to pronounce it.
Bronfman? I don't even know I know what you're talking about. The Seagrams sisters.
Yeah. She also had a sex slave locked in a room. So it's interesting how did these people find each other, right? Like Keith was trying to start a self-help. And so you have to get the so-called sheep, the poor victims, but then it seems like also the psychopaths get in there too.
I don't know, man. The whole thing with like these girls that like Allison and Lauren that got wrapped up into it, do they like I want them to talk so badly because it's like, did they think they were doing something positive? Were they so brainwashed that the rational thinking of like this is illegal and wrong, like just go out the way? Like I am so confused how they rationalize something like I can see how the brand and all that shit gets rationalized because I can just see where the mindset is a little bit there, but to have someone locked in a room, how do you explain that away?
Especially if, not to go down a slippery slope, but like sexuality wise, a lot of these women got into this and I would assume they were heterosexual. And then all of a sudden they have female sex slaves and they're forced to get more female sex slaves. Like, I can't imagine the cognitive dissonance, like just being so confused of like, what have I become?
What is interesting, because I don't know if they were like, if Allison's people, I don't think they were her sex slave. I think that she recruited sex slaves and then they were for Keith. I don't think
Everyone was for
because
Keith.
I believe so, because and we're going to go into this when we talk about Christian Snyder, but he did not approve of anyone being homosexual, like whatsoever, but especially women, because it was like a sign of like not obedience. What's the opposite of that? Like
Oh,
of
rebellion.
yeah, it was like something that like women did to like it
That's
was.
right.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know the
Yeah,
verbiage I'm
because
thinking of.
he thought men were so important and all of
Right.
that.
And
So
women
it
are
was,
there to like serve the men and are
yeah,
obedient to men. And so if you're a lesbian, that is not within his
disobedient.
right.
It would
Yeah,
be disobedient.
exactly. I mean that was his frame of mind with that. So he actually, which we're gonna get into, but with when he did have lesbian people in the ESP or whatever, he like made them have sex with him. Like he was like it was like a challenge or something, allegedly.
Ah.
But
So none of these women from what you've
from what
researched.
I've seen, they weren't like sleeping with each other. They were all recruited for him because he was like a major sex addict, and like all of these women that were like living with him all were knowingly sleeping with him. And then I think all of these, because India in Seduced said she was recruited and then she had to, I don't know if she said she ever had sex with them, but they were sexually involved in some way.
Right. So, okay. So now I get it. Because in the beginning, when they become the slave or
And
whatever,
that's why it's
like
trafficking, right?
yes, because they moved
Right.
through state lines, all of that stuff. But so they would ask when they became a slave, it was like, show me what you're eating or ask me before you can do this.
Right.
So it was just kind of making them become obedient. And then they would say, now your job is to seduce Keith, right?
Right.
But
And then
they
he
didn't,
would
did they
turn
do
it
it to
into
everyone?
well, not everyone's spoken out, so we don't really know. But
Yeah.
from what it sounds like is so then like India was given the task and she was actually no. So we do know a little bit because she was then told by Allison, you have to have your slaves do this now. Kind of, so it was like a trickle effect of they all were
Right.
kind of having to go through the challenge of like sleeping with him, and then he would ramp it up to the next level by saying, well, you're having issues with this part of sexuality or whatever. So we have to, keep doing it basically until
Yeah.
you're comfortable and through your issues. It's like,
Yeah. And all of the stuff, the rhetoric about sleeping with children and that being okay, and him having a relationship with a 15-year-old when what was he, 26 or
I don't remember
36 or
how
something
old
like
he
that.
was, but you do see in his teachings that he talks about, and this is totally a trigger warning, but he talks about raping babies and
Yeah.
basically trying to um what am I trying to say? Like he tries to make it okay to, and it talks about consent and like what that is. And because he had a history allegedly of sleeping with young girls, he tried to normalize it when his
Yeah.
teachings talking about young kids or young women or whatever. And that is disgusting. And it's a
Yeah.
big reason that there's some controversy with what's her name, Gina
Gina
Hutchinson.
Hutchinson. Yeah.
So she was 14 or 15. They start having a sexual relationship. Her sister sees it, so it's like there's proof that this
Yeah.
is going on. And I have to find it. Hold on. He tells her, I have it in front of me. She is a Buddhist goddess and that he is
Yeah.
an enlightened being destined to be with her. So he's brainwashing this child. I mean, my son is 13. They are children at this age. They are children. And it is.
And he messed her up so much. He said she had issues with death, so he made her keep a dead puppy in her freezer and open the door and look at it every day to get
I
over
didn't
it.
even know that.
He would do all of these incredibly traumatizing things. He would pinpoint what your issue was and just blast it until you were almost comatose and would do anything he said because you were so. It's called cognitive dissonance, and it's when somebody confuses you so much. If they said like, your name isn't really Jenna, you don't come from California, and then you're just like, okay, well, this person knows
Discombobulated, yeah.
everything, so I'm just gonna stick to this person because everything I know is wrong. And he was so good at it. It's shocking.
And like you said, you don't have your social circle to like mirror back what's normal. And so you just are completely, I mean, in the Vow, you see all of these people that came out of it going like, I feel like a crazy person. Like they can't rationalize what's real, what's not real, what's right, what's wrong. It's like your whole brain has been
Rewired.
brainwashed. Yeah. So I think we should get into this alleged other crimes because everybody's seen The Vow, everybody's seen Seduced. So we do know, and we talk a lot about it in the podcast. But what we didn't talk about were these 4 women, and there's a show that we watched where a lot of this information comes from called The Lost Women by Frank, and I'm forgetting his last name.
Parlata.
There we go. And he is the one that initially came out with the Nxim what is it called? Expose. And
oh, he's fantastic. He has a really well-known webpage, and he was an investigative journalist all over the place, and he's an interesting character. By no means does he seems a little left of center, shall we say, but he's just like hell-bent on exposing Scientology, Nxim, like all of these different things. So he has been a big person in this story, helping India's mother, Catherine Oxenberg, help find her and all of this stuff.
And God bless him, because that is got to be scary, because on both sides, whether you're talking about Scientology or Nxim, like you're going to have your life being threatened in multiple ways. And so
I love people like that. They'll put everything on the line, and they're like, no, this is because the Scientology people, maybe I shouldn't be saying this. But even when I lived in LA, when you walk past the Celebrity Center, there's a camera that goes, and it watches you. And he's very brave, is all I have to say.
So since we were already talking about Gina, we'll kind of go with her first. But so he'd heard about these other women kind of involved with Nxim, and suspicious kind of circumstances, they've all died. And Gina Hutchinson, so we just talked about the 14-year-old girl, all this stuff. So what we find out is that she, I think, was talking about what had happened when she was a young girl. And this was all happening right around the same time that Keith is trying to recruit the Bronfman sisters, which is a huge deal, right? Because they are going to fund everything. I mean,
these are the heiresses to the Seagram fortune, the alcohol. They have just endless amounts of money, which is always what one of these cult leaders is looking for, because they need money.
Yeah. I mean, flying on private jets and all this stuff costs a ton of money. Throwing on these, the V week or whatever it was called, it all ends up being sponsored by them. So when he is recruiting them, knowing that this is a big deal, Gina Hutchinson is a problem. And all of a sudden, she's found, I think it was 2 hours away, an hour and a half away from Albany, which not far. And she's found near this like Buddhist center in a room, supposedly killed herself with a shotgun.
Yeah. If anybody knows I've never even held a gun, and I know that you can't use a shotgun on yourself.
So, right. So it's like all true crimers will like probably hear that and be like, what? Because we know too, when a woman's going to commit suicide, a shotgun is not usually the way that happens. I don't think ever. And I think we've all seen...
I misspoke. You can commit suicide with a shotgun, but
you can make it work.
Like the kickback and all of that kind of stuff. For a woman, I don't think it would be a first choice.
Right. And it depends on how long your limbs are and all that kind of stuff. So in this show, they did a recreation of a girl wearing something similar to what Gina was wearing and the same stature and all that stuff. And she couldn't do it. And they won't say for sure, like, this didn't happen, but she's like, she could have used a branch or a twig or something, but the girl couldn't reach. She couldn't even reach the trigger. So it's like...
It's very suspect. Wasn't she just starting to go to therapy, and she was finally opening up about what had happened to her and realizing that it was child abuse?
Yeah, I think, I don't remember the details, but I know that she was talking, and that was going to be a big problem, especially when they're trying to get all this money coming towards them, and they see, everything's going to come bust.
It's very suspect and worth looking into for
Yeah,
sure.
I definitely think that that should be, I mean, maybe we'll start a change.org and we will sign a
Yeah,
petition and
maybe.
get people to look into this a little bit more, because I feel like, or we need to get Paul Holes on, what is
Yeah.
that show? What is the one he does all the recreations? We need Paul Holes to get
Yeah.
involved. So that was one, and so crazy. And then the other one that blows my mind is Kristen Snyder.
Yeah.
She was a lesbian, is a lesbian. And this comes back to what I was saying earlier, that that is like something that's not, uh, uh, was not Keith's thing. He didn't approve of it. So she
Which,
was,
by the way, it makes sense, right? Because he
oh,
thinks
100%.
he's all important, and there is a group of men that just don't even believe that that's possible. That lesbian, I mean, quite frankly, it just sounds better and better the older I get. But I can totally see that being such a threat to him. Like
Yeah.
she doesn't need me.
Right. And I can't manipulate her sexually, you know, and make her,
Yeah.
so it's interesting. But she's like, again, a smart woman. She's an environmentalist consultant. She hears about ESP. She's like, yes, this is going to make my career better, improve me, yada, yada, yada. So she gets involved in ESP, and then and this is how we've seen with everybody, right? They immediately are on that high, and then they get sucked
Yeah.
into like an intensive. So she goes to an intensive. Well, let me back up. She went to Albany on like a last minute random trip. And then she comes back, and then I think a couple weeks later or something, her and her wife go to Alaska to take this intensive. And this is where it gets weird. So you hear all these eyewitnesses say she's in class, she's yelling something, and then she gets removed, and that's really the last time anyone sees her. And then fast forward, the wife came forward for the first time ever, saying that before she disappeared, Kristen had told her wife that she was pregnant by Keith Raniere, and that when she went to Albany is when she had sex with him or got coerced into having sex with him or whatever the situation was. And that was what she was yelling in the class, that she was pregnant. And then
Right.
she was never seen again. And then it gets even weirder because her truck was found again, like 2 hours away, with a note in it. And I have to read you exactly the quote. Okay, so I don't have the whole letter, but it did say, something about, I was in a Nxim class, I was brainwashed, my brain, something to the effect of
Yeah.
my brain not working. And then it says at the bottom or something, no need to find my body.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
then,
it was the strangest suicide note I've ever seen. And I'm just because from true crime, I've seen so many. It made absolutely no sense.
it was interesting because it was like pointing the finger at Nxim, which if you're going to, take your life, then maybe, yeah, go out with a bang. You have nothing to lose. But then at the bottom or wherever it says the no need to find my body is where I was like,
What could you possibly, why would you possibly say that? For a real reason, why would you say that? You wouldn't,
I think the only
there's
reason,
no reason.
I mean, the two that come to mind, and I think that are the theories that are like going around, because the police theory was that she stole not a canoe. What is it? A kayak.
Kayak.
And that she was going to go tip herself over in the middle of the ocean or the river or whatever that body of water was. But nothing was ever found. The kayak, I don't think, was found. Paddles weren't found. Nothing of hers was found. Nothing. And the people that, I forget what they're called, but work with, finding bodies, the guy said he's had to find 16 bodies over his career. He's found every single one of them. So the fact that she has not been found, she was never in that water.
No,
So
she's the only body that didn't come back, and the kayak wasn't found. Like nothing washed ashore. That makes no sense.
so the only reason I feel like maybe like let it go is maybe she purposely disappeared, right? She's pregnant. She's trying to protect, who knows? Or the sinister thing is maybe Nxim is pulling a Scientology allegedly and has a basement somewhere that who knows?
Yeah.
That's the two theories I
Right.
think are.
Because, but what I meant was, if you really meant that, if you wrote that in your suicide note, why would you write
No,
that?
you wouldn't. No.
It doesn't make any sense. The only thing I could think is like if you didn't want them to waste money searching for you, so then you would say like, don't bother search. I don't know. That is the weirdest part of that whole thing.
That's so weird. And there's no sign of her. And so I don't think the wife said what she thought happened, but I think it's very sinister. And again, like, why is this? I mean, they closed the case. They said you have no body. How? If nothing else, it needs to be an open, unsolved missing persons or something at the very minimal.
Yeah.
It's just, whoever is connected with Nxim, there's something not right going on, whether it's branding, sex slaves, your eating habits, like it's crazy.
And it was so brilliant how they made it all a business and all of these offshoots of business, because they've made a serious decision. Are we going to make a religion or are we going to make a business? And Keith was like, no, make it a business, because then all of their documents are internal and protected and considered internal secrets and that sort of thing. So they could sue anybody who said anything about them.
I mean,
so it's as if he looked at these things like Scientology and was like, okay, that's good, but how can I make it even better?
Oh, yeah. I think, he's not the genius he portrays, but he's definitely smart, and he figured out a way. I mean, I feel like if the branding stuff had never happened, thus for like ringing the red flag happening, I think that they would have gone on with this for a very long time.
Yeah.
I don't.
And even if India Oxenberg hadn't been involved, because she was the famous name that finally got something done, and they started looking into this, because so many people had blown the whistle and said, look into this, but they didn't. And unfortunately, it took a royal descendant for them to pay attention.
Yeah. And if she would have gone public and done all the things she would have done, they would just keep going.
Oh yeah, I think she's so brave. I think both of them are extremely brave. To speak about this must be just like the trauma she faced and the shame and all of that from the cult, and then having to come public. It's like being traumatized twice almost.
Oh yeah, and then to be in that position as a mom.
Oh, her mother is amazing. Just amazing. She didn't give up, and she just kept trying, and without, it seems like, much help from the father too.
Yeah. I mean, she's amazing.
Yeah.
And then the last part, which is to me the most mind-boggling of these like 4 women situation, is, and I don't have their last names in front of me, Pamela Kofritz and Barbara Jeske. So they were 2 women that both were part of Keith's close inner circle, who were living together, sleeping together, everything. And there's like an unknown woman that we don't know who she is, but that was also a part of this group because she doesn't name herself. And all of them, and I think maybe another person, come down with some sort of cancer, whether it was bladder or I forget the other ones, but everyone came down with a form of cancer. Everyone but one died. And the one that is still living had given Frank some hair that she had kept from when she cut it during that time. And they tested it, and basically it showed chronic levels of, what did he say?
Heavy metals.
Yeah, he said it shows a sign of low dose chronic poisoning, which essentially was rat poison. And that could have totally manifested into different cancers, into different bodies.
Absolutely.
People. And my theory, after I was thinking about it and like reading it, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, why would he have to do that? But I think what happened is he starts seeing these young girls coming in, right? Like Lauren and Allison, and they're being groomed and they're being set up as the next kind of generation of Nxim women. And so once they has these ladies running the show, running the classes, doing all this stuff, he doesn't need these other people. And that's what I think happened. I mean, I don't know why else he would mess with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the point of getting rid of them otherwise?
Right. And do we know if he had any life insurance policies on any of these women?
So, okay, so I don't think he took out the policy, but I believe with Pam, she either wrote him as the executor or she left everything to him, but there was definitely some speculation of that he was to benefit from her will.
Yeah, it's that whole thing is very interesting. There's a lot more to this. I mean, at this point, he's in jail forever, but
Yeah.
they have to keep going and find all of his crimes.
Yeah, I mean, these people have family, and I can't imagine. I know they probably know or think they know what happened, but doesn't mean you don't still, do the case and find it and actually like say this is what happened. I don't know.
Yeah, they're never going to get any closure in terms of Keith, like when he was sentenced and he said, I have absolutely no remorse. I did nothing wrong. I mean, they're not going to get anything from him, but if I was a family member, I would want it just in writing somewhere that he did these crimes and he was responsible for this and this and this. So,
And also, if I was a family too, and you were able to get that, then I think you can move forward and say, you may never make money off of my family because you murdered them or whatever. I think you can take that next step, because when you're in jail too, like, I feel like he's going to find a way to, I mean, we have the Vow Part 2 coming out next year. They're making a whole nother series with him in jail.
Well, yeah, because these people are still devoted to him. And he's just going to do more brainwashing in prison, just like Manson did. Manson brainwashed a lot of people, unless they put him in solitary. Where is he, by the way? What jail? In New York State?
Okay, I'd have to look it up. I think he's in the same one that Epstein was in. Wasn't it like the disgusting, like Brooklyn one or something?
Yeah, that was. But I thought that was just like a holding. No, it wasn't. It was a prison.
I remember hearing it and I was like, wait a second. Let's see.
Is it Rikers Island? Because that's a really bad jail. Prison.
Oh, so after a stint in Brooklyn federal jail. So I think that's the one, right?
Yeah.
Was in.
Yeah, because they put him there before they transfer them. And then does it say where he is now?
I don't see anything. It just says he was sentenced. So maybe they haven't, like, with COVID, maybe they're not moving people around, right? Who knows? I'm sure it's somewhere.
Yeah.
But I hope he gets, well, that's the thing. He won't get what he's coming to him, because even Mark Vicente says, when you meet him and you're talking to him and all of a sudden you feel he has that ability to make you feel like the most special person in the room, basically.
Yeah.
On people. Who knows? This, yeah. I don't think it's over by any means.
No way, because there's some of these people are going to create offshoots of this cult, and I would imagine it's better than ever, right? From what I've been reading, they're still completely into it and continuing. I wonder how much money he made,
so
because all of the sessions they took, those classes, like Scientology, you have to pay so much to take.
It's like $7,000 or something crazy like that. And that's the other thing. I mean, how are people just going into debt left and right? It's insane. But I did see, because so we live obviously in Orange County, California, and they had said there's like a center here during the vow, and they were naming they said Orange County, and I was like, where is it? And I couldn't figure out where it is, but I did find that they are now selling off the different buildings that the centers were in. So I mean, like, where does that money go to?
Probably the courts.
Okay.
Because he has to pay restitution. But I wonder, like, the how do you say it?
I think it's Bronfman. I think it's Bronfman, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they had like hundreds of millions of dollars. So I don't know. I just wonder where all of that money went that they were bringing in.
I want to know.
Probably has it somewhere.
I want to hear from their dad, because I know when they first got involved, he was like, this is a cult. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, their father is still living?
He was when they got involved. Wow. I don't know about now. But when they were involved, he was quoted as saying like that they were involved in a cult.
I wonder why they didn't do anything to protect the money, the family, once they realized they were in a cult. Oh, that might be a deep dive for me to go down. That's
rabbit hole. Here we go.
Yeah. Seriously.
Oh man, but this case, I mean, I could talk about it forever because I am just perplexed by it all.
Well, it's just such a spider web. There's so much to it, so many people, so many little companies that he created, and it's a
And I'm
wild
hoping.
story.
So I saw Lisa Remini has a podcast, and I think the last episode I saw she had, because I haven't listened to it yet, was they were comparing Scientology to Jehovah Witnesses.
Mm.
And so I wonder if they will tackle Nxim a little bit and
Oh, I would
go down
imagine
that.
so.
I hope so. I would love to hear
Yeah.
their insight because they have such insider knowledge. And then to compare it to, you know, the audits or the collateral or whatever, it's interesting. And it
Very
sucks because it
interesting.
does seem like there was good. And if you just stuck with the ESP stuff, like you're legit and you're good. Don't brainwash people, because there did seem like good came out of it. And you can see that when people are talking about that part of their experience and how they were left on a high and they were working through their problems. And like
It's similar to
I would
Scientology.
totally have been sucked into that shit. I
Yeah.
100% would have been like, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that as celebrities that say that Scientology helped them get off drugs and stop drinking, and so maybe some positive things happen, but it doesn't outweigh the negative.
No, not at all. It just shows the greed of people too, right? It's like not enough. You have to take over people's lives and ruin their lives so you can be more powerful or more rich or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm so into psychology that his like how he became that way. I know they say his mother was an alcoholic. Who knows if she really was? The father sounds like he was a raging narcissist and just filled Keith's head with all of these lies. And how
I
does
can't
somebody
wait for
become that
everybody
way?
to listen to the podcast because we do get into like some of his early life, and it is just
Yeah.
we were researching it. I was like, what a creep. He is
Yeah.
such a creep. He's
So
so
weird.
gross and weird and like, oh,
Yeah.
it's
He
bad.
would have to create a cult to
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
attract women.
Totally. Totally. There's no other way that somebody was going to give him the time of day. I swear.
Yeah. Okay, well, the
Okay.
episode is going to be fantastic. And if anybody has any other questions, let us know because we are more than willing to do deep dives.
And if anyone
And
knows where the Orange County Center is, tell me.
yes,
I
tell
want
us.
to drive by
We
so
will
bad.
go. We have done it before. We have well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but we have not trespassed. We have not.
We were this close to jumping a fence. That's all. Oh man, we should do that. We should do an episode of all of our little adventures that we've gone
Yeah.
on, and we have to go on a few more because I'm still obsessed with trying to get into the hotel. I want to watch.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna walk in.
Hotel Cecil. We're very interested in Hotel Cecil, but I think they're redoing it. They probably
They
stopped
are.
because of COVID.
No, I saw they
Gotta
are.
go back.
They're refurbishing it, and they're gonna like reopen it as like another hotel. I think, which is
Ooh.
there's probably so much
It's a
bad
totally
juju there.
haunted hotel, and there's been many deaths there. And it's what was it built in the 20s or something? It used to be
I believe
beautiful.
so.
Then it became like a homeless
It became
squatter
like a
drug den.
yeah.
Ooh.
Got quite the history, and it's where what's her name? The girl that ended up in the water tank, Lynn.
I can't believe you remember her name.
It's like
I almost remembered it for a second, but yes, that's where
it's so
that
creepy.
poor girl.
And I'll tell you, we were outside the doors, and you could just, I mean, because we're both pretty sensitive to energy, and we were both like, ooh, like stopped in our tracks, and I. Like, and also because I'm a psycho and I love American Horror Story, and it's based kind of loosely. One of the seasons is based.
No, it's based completely on the hotel.
And so I like really just wanted to go inside and be like, yes, I've been in the hotel. But it almost feels like a wall of energy that you just like do not want to.
Dark energy. Yeah, it was. We were there like, you could feel it. Like, do not come in.
Do not enter.
No.
But it'll be our ADD sidebar episode of our adventures of where we've been in.
If we can ever get out of our house, that would be great. I would love that. I'll go anywhere. I'll go to a haunted hotel gladly at this point.
Just walk
And as
right
long
in.
as I can't hurt myself, can we just
Should we address the elephant?
maybe? I mean, like we got halfway through and I was like, there's gonna be so many people like, what? How are you gonna say what happened to her? So I was mouthing off to my husband. I'm just kidding. I have a really bad neck. I was in a car accident and I bought a neck hammock, not the neck hammock. No, no, no. I couldn't spend that much money on myself. I bought some offshoot on Amazon from
I didn't know
China.
that.
Yeah. And it hooks onto your door and you lay your neck in it. And if you're really unlucky like me and Mercury is in retrograde and Mars is in retrograde, the hook snapped, broke, and it came down and hit me here, and then knocked my teeth out. So don't look too closely at my teeth because they're all fake right now. So that's what the
text I got. I just got slapped in the face with metal. I broke my nose. Fuck 2020. I was like, what is happening?
I forgot I texted you because it had happened and I was like, I have to tell somebody. So I
was like reading, I was like, and it's one of those things because we both have this tendency to laugh when people are in pain. And so I was like, oh my God, what's happening? But I'm like laughing because your verbiage was so funny. I was like, oh my God.
When I looked up in the mirror and I had no teeth, I was like, this is just how
2020.
Don't ever ask how it can get worse 2020 because
Don't do it.
She will prove you wrong.
Oh, Mercury in retrograde. What a bitch.
But today we stationed direct. So we're out of Murder and Mars retrograde.
Oh, but isn't Scorpio and something's happening with Scorpio?
No, it's a Scorpio new moon. Don't you say anything bad about Scorpio. It's a new moon in Scorpio tonight. So everybody put your crystals out. Charge your crystals.
Get her done.
Yep.
Alrighty.
And then what's a good oil for Scorpio? Scorpio is like deep, dark, the undead, maybe white angelica.
I was just going to say white angelica, rub it on your head, your shoulders, and just protect yourself.
What does white angelica do?
It wards off like bad energy.
Okay.
I always wear it when I'm going to be around people I don't like or don't get along with. And I like sprinkle it all over myself. And it really does when you vibe high, people that don't vibe high or things that don't vibe high will not be within your space.
I picture it like a white light over me when I put it on and like nobody can penetrate it.
Yep.
That's why I have 5 bottles.
Oh yeah. I'm obsessed. Trust me.
I can't get enough of it. Anything else?
No, I think that's
Any other oil?
No, I'd have to think about it. What else?
What would be the oil for 2020? White angelica.
Oh my God. Probably. Yeah, I would say white angelica. We need all of that. And we need valor to be brave.
Valor. That's my favorite.
Oh,
yeah. Burn some valor.
And ward off bad juju.
Definitely. All right. Well, this has been fun.
I love it. This is fun.
Yeah.
It's coffee talk.
Yeah, exactly. We're just a little two yentas talking about crime. That's all.
All right, so stay tuned. Nxim episode is out. Well, actually, this will all be coming out next to each other. So go to Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts to listen to the full Nxim breakdown. We really get into Keith Raniere's early life and kind of what led him to this point. And then we'll see you next time.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram at Murder in Retrograde. Go to our website, murderinretrograde.com, and we will see you soon.
Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Bye.